So welcome everyone. This is my first presentation for this event, but like this is the second time. Uh, Last year I presented in one of the design pattern presentation. Before we begin, I would like to dedicate this presentation to all the female scientists and engineers who are involved, whether we name them or we known or unknown, everyone who are involved in producing the COVID-19 vaccine to fight the against the pandemic. So we shall begin with the presentation. So first of all, this is the title of the presentation. It is all about the challenges and possibilities to adoption on LabVIEW as mainstream programming language. If you actually attended yesterday's uh, panel session, we had like a little bit of topic which actually cropped out during that discussion also. I'm the director of Graphics. I'm also the certified LabVIEW architect as well as the LabVIEW champion. So you might ask, why this presentation from me? So about me, I've been using LabVIEW since 2011, and I've been doing consulting as well as training and certification. And we have recently, it has been nearly 6 months, we have been, helping out the local companies in India with exclusive LabVIEW recruitment services. And I'm also the founder and director of Graphics also. Now, why this presentation from me and everything is because we are involved with everything you can think about in the LabVIEW or like a Yana industry. For example, it can think about a training, empowering the people, at the same time providing consulting services to other organizations and everything, and finally providing them that main power or the resource to get that things done to many companies. And another thing, why this presentation is also from me again is because I had been the presenter as well as the panel member for the CLA summit in India, and that was back in I think 2016. And I was like I mentioned earlier that I was a presenter during the GLA Summit 2020, and I've been the coordinator as well as the presenter for two CLD summits that was held in India. I was also traveling for developer days across India in several various cities across India, meeting all the LabVIEW users and communities. And I'm also the founding member of Indian Lab User Group, one of the largest in the world, possibly because of the population density in India. And I actually coordinated for 8 quarterly events, and then actually handed down each to responsibility to our other coordinators at the moment. And I'm also the advisor for the Chennai Lab User Group. If you attended one of the user group event earlier meeting, like a presentation just before this, my colleague Muruganandan, he's a coordinator for the Chennai Lab User Group, and I actually provide the advice to him. So that user group is also now 1 year old. And another thing, why again this presentation from me, there are various reasons. I've worked closely with a Yanai application engineering team for nearly 2 years. I was actually the consultant for National Instruments at that time. I used to meet our the Yanai application engineers, where they receive the code from the customers. Okay, so most of the time the code are as large as the map of the world, as well as the spaghetti code and whatnot. And and another thing is I had the opportunity to interact with 500 plus scientists and engineers, and who actually works for a more than 100 companies. So uh, this is the reach, and why this presentation now, the main reason why I'm building this premise is for this last 7 years or so or something like that, or even longer, my experience in the industry, meeting people who are just starting out to use LabVIEW, who have been using LabVIEW for a long time, and whatever we have done so far, like I mentioned earlier, that I coordinated a lot of events, CLA summit, CLD summit, as well as the Indian Lab User Group meetings and everything. But still, we continue to see the spaghetti code again and again. Even after training and certification, we're still seeing spaghetti code. Even after a lot of community events, and still we're continue to seeing the spaghetti codes. And even after so many Lab User Group meetings, and still we continue to see the spaghetti code. So although we have this ecosystem of a training and certification, and like lab user groups, as well as the community events like the one we are having at the moment, we still are like saying the spaghetti. Possibly like people who have the spaghetti code may not be aware of what we're doing. We do not know. So this presentation actually tries to bridge that gap and then see what are the the challenges as well as the possibilities that LabVIEW can offer. So again, like why this presentation? So these are the few questions we might be asking the question. Okay, why? What are the reasons like lab users are not taking effort to improve their programming skills? And possibly like lab is not taken seriously by its own users, or it is not taken as a mainstream programming language. So these are the questions like that can crop up into everyone. But like I don't want to put my subjective bias just because like I've been using LabVIEW for a while. Because like one time like one of our I think it was Chris Roebuck who actually told me like during one of the LabVIEW champions meeting, not the meeting but interview, I took the interview of him, and then he mentioned that like he met one guy who had 12 years of LabVIEW experience, but when he met him, he actually knew that like the guy was actually having 1 year of experience 12 times. Okay, so I've came across like several developers like that. I'm not like judging anything, but here like just trying to trying to understand like let's this presentation be more exploratory rather than the conclusive in nature. So let's find out like what is all this all about. Okay, so the presentation, what you are going to see about, it's not only my effort, it's the like the you can say it's a cohesive effort of all the LabVIEW professionals out there. So before we move into like let's look into some of the statistics. So like this is the information that is available, readily available from IEEE. So they actually compared like a 55 programming languages on various like aspects, ranking. For example, here if you see IEEE Spectrum has done their own judgment, and finally like they categorize using the trending jobs opened all over the world, as well as like whether it is open source or not. And how they actually categorize it, like these are the the different parameters they use to conclude like where LabVIEW actually stand among other programming languages. And these are the like different platforms where like these all programming languages are available to give like a LabVIEW a fair fight against like all the heavyweights out there, like which are open source and everything. These are actually the ranking to simplify. So IEEE Spectrum actually shows that like Python, as everybody mentioned, like is on the numero uno. And then if you see down there, like LabVIEW is like a 37 out of 55. This is overall like a ranking. And if you go into the trending, like that is most of the people are talking about hype and everything, AI, ML and everything. So basically here like LabVIEW actually like goes even further down in the ranking out of 55. And in terms of the job also, like it actually improves from here, but from the initial part, like it is actually like a sliding down. Maybe like there is like they are not actually publishing too much out there, we do not know. But like we're just using this information from IEEE as like the measuring stick at the moment. And in the open source, as you can see, like we all know that it was like a quite obvious. So LabVIEW actually stands at 46 out of 55. Again, like we're not judging, it's an exploratory thing. Let's look like what is going to we are going to figure it out. Okay, so if we go on the basis of the platforms, on the web as well as the mobile, like there's no data available for LabVIEW. We're making like some changes. Like I saw one of the presentation today on like the learnings from the LabVIEW NXT, but something good came out of that one, and we got like the web module for like the current gen of LabVIEW, although like next gen no longer exists. I think like that is sort of let's leave it down there. So like in terms of the enterprise, like LabVIEW actually comes does better, and then like it comes to like a 27 out of 41. And this is actually, as you can see, like the number is also like a less number of programming languages available here. Out of 55, there was 55 initially, and now we have got 41. And embedded is where like a LabVIEW actually like a very, very strong, and like it's actually like a 12 out of 17. Okay, so this is the general ranking. Like will again, like I said, like this is an exploratory presentation, and we're not going to say okay, this is it. at this moment of time, because most of the programming language may or may not be comparable or something like that. But here, like we're talking in terms of the general term. So now, like that was like the what the was available in the internet, the information. Now, like this is actually where the interesting thing happens. So again, like this is another slide. One of the reason is like the slide what I've shared earlier was like I had a motivation of becoming a director and running a company and everything. But here, like this is the empirical research. So like apart from CLA and LabVIEW champion, like I'm also hold the degree in MBA information management. So I did like this kind of the empirical research, or like sort of like a thesis after I had my MBA like a long time ago. So it was like a great opportunity for me. So to gather the empirical data, we created like a 2-minute survey, and it was conducted to understand the lab users' perspective on LabVIEW compared to other programming languages. There were like actually 12 open-ended questions. Again, like there can be a lot of technical words if you have done masters, or like you have done like some postdoctorate research or something. You might be knowing like a certain kind of information. Possibly like most of you are aware of this. So open-ended questions are basically used so that like to avoid the the subjective bias, because like if I give you let's say 5 answers and then you have to select from them, then like you are forced to select which are provided. But here, like I provided the open-ended question so that the participant can actually open their heart out and then like provide the answer. So on that one, like we actually received like a 65 entries. This is actually a good number in my context, like because out of majority of the people who are using LabVIEW and everything, like not everybody actually uses LabVIEW, and this is like a quite understandable. For like I actually use this for like a 5 days, and I ran in the LinkedIn as well as the local network, and I got a lot of information from all the people. So there are lots of data, so like I'll rush. I'll take all the questions at the end. Okay, it is going to be discussed afterwards. So to avoid the subjective bias, like because like some of the people in the industry, like I already know them. If I know their names and like if I know their company names and something like that, then like I might have like a little bit of prejudice among their data rather than others. So to avoid that, we didn't actually collected the personal and contact details, and we actually used the qualitative analysis on the sample to receive the open-ended responses, which is I mentioned in the previous slide. And we actually narrowed down to quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis, basically what we did was like we used the frequency of the common themed responses. For example, like somebody, 5 or 6 people will say similar kind of stuff. We actually like use that on a quantitative analysis. For example, like 5 people responded this way. Okay. So now like demography is very, very important. If you know about the sampling, I think like we are still, or like we just came out of like, in some places there is like, the second wave, third wave, we didn't know. And everybody is aware of the sampling and everything. So here like we had a sample of 65 people, excluding me, like I'm the 65 plus 1. So here like it's actually a good number, because majority of the people who actually, provided the data are actually like a highly experienced people individual here. As you can see, 6 to 10 years up to like a 21, we got like a majority of the people here. While like we still got like a 2 to 5 years people, 20, it's also a good number. So like it actually was like a good exercise that we can actually see the perspective of all these people. Now like some might argue that like very few samples are from the new user. For example, here like we're trying to look into the adoption of LabVIEW. So people might argue, but there is a compensation factor here. If you see, all experienced programmers were once programmers. Okay, for example, like a year, like whoever is in this demography, they were once the users initially, like just the beginners initially. And another thing is like people who are in this demography also has got like the outer reach to many programmers out there. They have got a lot of clients, and then like they understand the the psychology perspective on why go with LabVIEW and why not with others. And like they actually have got like extensive experience than most of the people who might actually use it for certain purpose, which we'll see in a moment. So once we have this, like now like we'll look into the, okay, before that, like there's a slide which actually shows us like the demography that who actually uses, how long they use LabVIEW in a week. Okay, so if you see the majority of the people actually use like 11 to 20 hours, that's like a half of the time. Possibly like they would be working in the information collection, like the requirements gathering, or like a collaborating, meeting, discussion, and everything. We cannot judge this here again. This is just the assumption, but as you can see, like there are a few people who actually put in like more than 100 hours. Okay, this is like actually mind-boggling and quite awesome. So hats off to them. So hardcore LabVIEW programmers. Now, like the results, that was the demography. So results actually show that like the first question we asked was like why you started using LabVIEW in the first place, because this is like a very primary question, and then why people use it and everything. So the majority of the people actually saw that capability of LabVIEW. Okay, this is very, very strong point, and then they saw that the capability of LabVIEW was the main reason like why they selected. And then the second best was like easier and faster. As obviously we all know, it's like intuitive and like a graphical in nature. Again, like I'm not putting my words into your like head and everything. And now like the next thing is like the another favorite thing was like employer was already using it. So basically like you can see that these might actually come to both of this. Okay, so basically like here like we can see that like a LabVIEW is very powerful in terms of like people who have used it, and who have become the advocate, and that's on so on. But like one of the thing that is like a little bit of concern is like the penetration of the LabVIEW into the academics. Okay, so universities, I've seen like a lot of case studies where like a uni people are using it, but at the same time like a year, like as you can see, like only a few people, at least in this segment, like only a few people actually started using LabVIEW at academics. Most of the people actually capability of LabVIEW and so on. So this is like a few responses. Like I said, like this is a quantitative analysis, and this is the qualitative analysis. So few like responses, what I received. This is the beauty of the open-ended questionnaire. So graphical programming, nice hardware ecosystem, yeah, great. Quick prototyping and removes necessity of learning visual. So like most of them are like my favorite. Also, why I started using LabVIEW in the first place. So another thing is like we asked them the second question, which was actually like, what other programming languages you have used? So most of the people actually said that, they have used like a LabVIEW and other programming languages. Again, like a year, like we're not asking them how much you are using or something. We're not asking, we're not comparing LabVIEW against like other programming language in this like a data. Here, only we're saying that like whether you have used other programming language or not. And here, like as you can see, like 5 out of like 65 people have used only LabVIEW. So like this is also like a good thing we can see that like a LabVIEW standalone can also do miracles. Now, like another question, what we asked was, many people have been using for a long, long time, and like we in our industry also, like in our company also, like we get clients like who have been using LabVIEW full-fledged, or like they are using LabVIEW and like a NI tool for certain aspects of the project also. So here we asked whether they are using like a standalone or like they are using LabVIEW with other programming language, and like you can see like nearly 50 or something, like half of it are using LabVIEW on there, and like this is very, very encouraging actually. But like here, like they are saying that like, okay, LabVIEW and we are using like both of the programming language together. This is also not a bad thing, like given that LabVIEW actually provides a lot of interface to like work and collaborate with other programming languages like Python and C, C++, MATLAB, and so on. And here, like this is like a little bit of segment. We could have actually put this here also, but like again, like if I put it there, it will be not fair for the people who actually answered that. Like they use LabVIEW mostly, but like in some cases they are also like using LabVIEW. We do not know the reason, but like here, like they are using it. Possibly like they already have like an inherited code which already works. We do not know, or like there is like a certain limitations of LabVIEW. We do not know. But here, like it's clear that like LabVIEW is king here also. And now another thing is like we asked them the question like since you have already used LabVIEW as well as some other programming languages also, like do you think that like a LabVIEW is replaceable with any other programming languages? So it is very mixed here. So like they said yes and no also, like it's very divided. It's just like I think like I should not get political, but like it looks more like I think people from like United Kingdom might know about. Okay, let's not go over there. You got the point. So yeah. So yeah, so like this is some of the output we have received. So some people said like not so much, or it would take a combination of languages because like some of the project would require that one, and they don't see like any other kind of alternatives provide such a platform. So like this is a like a key point. And some said like readily yes and no. Okay, this was like a majority of the answer. Now, like another thing is, we asked them like, what was the perceived advantage of LabVIEW? Like we asked them like, you started using LabVIEW, but why do you think like a LabVIEW has got like the edge over the other programming languages? So most of the people, as I think like this was quite expected, that like hardware integration is very powerful, and I don't think like there is any competition for NI and LabVIEW in the industry at the moment. And another thing, like most of the people saw that like a graphical programming language and easy to implement. Okay, so this was like, as you can see, the number is actually larger than 65. The only reason is because like some of the people actually answered like both of them also. So again, like this is the beauty of having the open-ended survey questions. But if you have large number, then like it's nearly impossible to, do the quantitative analysis also. There are like a certain drawbacks. Now, like these are some of the empirical data responses on in terms of like a perceived advantage, speed and visual. Everybody knows about that. And yeah, parallelism, like hardware, we have already discussed, and graphical programming. Sweet. And more responses. We got like a lot of unique responses here. That's why I'm showing it here. So ecosystem of hardware, easy start of first measurement, hardware instrumentation interfaces. Yeah. So like a first class citizen, I think like this was like a term that the Norm Krishna actually used it in in the morning presentation. At least like it was morning here in India. So, and then like quick to prototype and FPGA again. These are fine. And now like we have seen the beauty of LabVIEW against other programming languages. Now we're looking into the limitations of LabVIEW compared to other programming languages, and this is where like it's very, very highly divided. Okay, divided opinion here. Like what is the limitation of LabVIEW? Possibly one of the main reason I think is because even like whenever we conduct the training, also like one thing what we ask them is don't bring your like a project into the training room, because what actually happens is like when you bring your project into the training room, you whatever you are learning during the training, like you will try to fix that specific problem that you are facing in your actual project, and that is where like you miss the entire picture. But like again, like this is a great thing that like we got like a diverse options also. Again, like this is why it's a matter of like exploration rather than conclusive kind of stuff. So as you can see, like it's not the majority, but like 11 out of 65 people actually saw that like cost possibly like it's expensive and everything. People can will see into that one in a moment. And most of the people, like 8 out of them, said like they are not aware like what is the limitation of LabVIEW against other programming language. Some actually said that the source code control is required at the moment. Like we have got add-ons and everything, but they might expect that source code control should be there. I think this is because like whenever we meet like some of the customers, they have got large project and they have got like multiple people, but they have never used source code control, and they might have like 5,000 6,000 VIs in a project, but it's like it's a pain because like they are not actually aware. And memory issue actually comes together with the source code control. And some people still believe that maybe the libraries are still lacking, maybe compared to Python, which is highly popular with like a lot of libraries. UI limitations, somebody, 5 of them actually said, and the continuous integration and like a continuous deployment. Hopefully, like these are the things. And some people actually say that some of the training resources are also lacking. And finally, like a Unicode support is also there. So these are like a few of the the open-ended responses. So they said that it's a proprietary and a bit expensive, and then like graphics lacks in features. And I think like so everybody must have faced this exception handling. You are doing certain thing and boom, like the lab crashes again. Again, we understand like the R&D going behind like developing such a very powerful tool. And some of the thing I think like this is the one I think like everybody might be okay, gotcha kind of stuff where like people think okay, it's a drawing, it looks like a flow chart and everything like and finally like you got into this like a maze. Okay, or spaghetti code, or in India we call it like a khichdi. Okay, whoever has visited like a let's not go into that one again. And somebody believe that like there are no limitations also. This is also good. Again, some people actually said that like it lacks libraries, and working with like a complex data structure is pain. Okay, so possibly like these kind of things can be resolved, but I think like these are like a very specific problem for like a specific kind of projects. But it's like these things has to be resolved if we need to go head to head to it like other programming languages. So why, like this is another question like we asked, like why all programmers do not use LabVIEW. So here like most majority of the people actually answer that like it's not for general purpose, or like it is only for the niche industry. So niche industry based elements, like it's for the test and measurement industry, and they don't believe that like it can be used. I think like today's I saw the learnings from the LabVIEW NXT, and I actually like tried hard to make it a general purpose language sort of using the LabVIEW NXT. And for some reason, okay, whoever watched that video, you can go back and watch it. For some reason, like it didn't work out as planned. But like yeah, so like majority of people believe that like it's not general purpose actually. So another thing, the second most like people responded was the cost. And another part, which is like half of the other majority of the responses, was programmers were like unaware of what LabVIEW is capable of. And like there are like other things. There are a lot of slides, so I'm like looking into the time also, so that we'll go here. So cost priority again. And another thing is like we saw earlier that like many people didn't actually use LabVIEW at the college. Possibly like the penetration into the academics is not there. Maybe we need to build some like a test over there. And yeah, and there are other things like again cost, and people don't think it is a real language, a lack of libraries. These are like a common theme that is empirical. And finally, like what must be done to change the perception of programmers. So now like we're doing all these like events and everything just to ensure that there's awareness in the industry, and they are going to adopt the the programming principles, as well as the the high way of writing a programming code. So most of the people believe that like the marketing and awareness is necessary. And I think like GLA Summit is one of the key places to do that. But it's still like I think like it is only reaching out to people who have already used LabVIEW, or like they are CLD, CLA or something. We do not know like what we can do after that, and like make it general purpose. So I think like we had this a little bit of learning from the NXT presentation today. Make it open source. I think like some part of Yana is now like open source. Sorry, open source, and people are like contributing into that one. Possibly people are thinking, okay, we are doing a little bit of leaps using the like the community edition, and then making it more approachable by many people. And people believe that like maybe if we integrate the coding practices, people might start looking LabVIEW as the programming language. And two of them actually saw that like there's no change is required. So here was like some of the examples. So I think like this was very, very important also. Possibly like this can be attractive to the text-based programming languages, or like programmers also, because when they come into this one, like they think that it's like some sort of like a alien world or something like that. So I think like this can be integrated possibly. We do not know. Like I think like there's a like the converter from the LabVIEW code to C also, but like I think that is like a little bit of costly option. We do not know like how Yana is going to take this. And yeah, so community uptake, make it harder. We do not know again. Like I think like awareness is required for this one also. And this is like a general purpose again, the same thing. Uh, General use again, like it's the thing that is like coming up again and again, again and again. Easier integration. I think like we're moving towards again and again with each iteration of LabVIEW. And this is like I cannot just include something like rainbowy. Okay, so a little some like a thorns as well. So nothing can be done. It's far too late. LabVIEW is done for a time to embrace Python, and I'm a CLA. Okay, so I think like this can be like a wake up call for like other programmers also, the what we can do to revive, or like at least in its perception. So nothing should be done. I think like best way. I think like he's absolutely correct also, because in India, like what we have seen is like there are many companies like who are already using like a LabVIEW. These are like most of the people are like a scientist and everything. They don't really care like what programming language has to be used. As as soon as like it can be done as quickly as possible. Now like I'm going to put a little bit of my personal experience. I'll keep it as quickly as possible, because like we might be running out of time. So I started using LabVIEW simply because like a simplicity to work with the FPGA. And I have used programming languages, like these are the programming languages, and mostly like I'm using standalone. And yes, like a LabVIEW is 100% replaceable for each and every application with each and every programming language, but like it's inefficient, like it's just like a pain. Okay? It's like not worth it to replace LabVIEW with another programming language. It's just like just like uh, reinventing the wheel. Why it is necessary, I do not know. Just like Steve said yesterday. And these are the other things, like a faster than other programming language based on that one because of the graphical nature. No closest competition in instrument control in the industry, and limitation again, like a general purpose. Why I quoted the web is because as we are moving towards this, the IIoT and then 5G, domain of the industry, like we are getting too many demand on, most of the system has to be like IoT and everything, and that is where like I think like possibly 2022 might answer that one, Labi. And again, like the niche industry, this is completely thing, and it is not completely open source for overall addition. But like I don't think like this is a limitation for the niche industry, because for example, like compare the some car with like a Ferrari. Okay, but I'm just giving a very short answer because of the limitation. And basically, like LabVIEW is not taken as a mainstream because of the cost. And the main reason I found out is like, let's be honest, it has the way it has been marketed. Okay, the cost is justified as it needs continuous R&D. I know LabVIEW is expensive, but like it is required because like a continuous R&D is there. We have like R&D, R&D in like a Bangalore also. So we know that like how much work goes into like developing that software. But at the same time, like marketing can be tweaked because like most of the time, like we have seen even yesterday, like we had this discussion that like LabVIEW has been portrayed as easy to write code and simulation software. Okay, they are not even like promoting as the actual IDE or like a development environment, but like as a simulation software. That is how like most of the people when I encounter them. And this is the perception. Because of this perception, like a huge amount of spurious code has been produced, and that is where like people actually develop this distaste. And like because due to like both self-made as well as the inherited code. So if possible, like we need to integrate at least like a simple design patterns or DNI recommended guidelines. Even they do not want to integrate like these mores, just like a norm says, or like we are not going to implement like Uncle Bob's solid principles. At least like they can implement simple design patterns and recommended guidelines. Because like most of the time what we see is like we get rescue projects where like we have to go and then like do all the digging, and like it's just such a pain, and it makes me cry. Okay, so now like the missing link, I'll give you the rationale. Like maybe we'll try to figure it out. This is exploratory again, like I will look into this. I think I got like a 12 minutes or so here. So the main reason missing link is like most of the people, like the customers, are actually stuck here. Okay, they just want to get things done, and it's such a pain all the time. And because of that reason, like the developer experience suffers, because like they don't train people for the learning experience. Learning experience means like a why. Okay, why we are using certain approach and why we need to do certain way. And when only when you know why, and you can finally implement how to do it. Okay, because like if you just jump into how to do it and everything, like without proper understanding on like why we are using certain approach. I think like we had this discussion about like actor framework versus DQMH, QMH, and so on and so on. So like it has to come actually from here. Once you learn like why you are doing this and how and what comes, and because like you have not actually addressed these three, you get all these three from customer. Okay, so customer experience is actually like if customer does not come back to you, it's actually a good thing. They're happy. Okay, in most of the cases. And sometimes like they can come with a feedback and everything, that is a good thing. But like if they come back more than often, that basically means there is something wrong in the process. And that is why. Okay, why is it not working? Okay, this is the question like a customer is going to ask, how to make it work and what to do to make it work. Okay, we already know this aspect, so like I'm not going to touch there because of the limitation of time. And the missing link is basically the disconnect between the developer and then the decision maker. This is the thing like I've faced again and again and again, because the employer, they don't actually want to educate their the programmers, and most of the time the programmers are also a solo programmers. So even though the developer attends the GLA summits, CLA summits, and all these events from NI and everything, but if the decision maker does not actually invest the time and energy, why it is important, they don't actually care about LX and DX, then your UX is going to suffer, and finally they will come back again and again complaining only, rather than providing the good review. So a decision making level may not always care about programming language, because I've seen the customer actually does not care whether we write in LabVIEW or something like that. It doesn't really matter. It's completely down to us how fast we can develop and deliver it. So although okay, so the decision makers does not understand, but they can understand one thing, and this has been cropping up today and yesterday's presentation, which is actually known as the technical debt. I think everybody knows about it. I'm not going to go too much into that one. If you write a very bad a spaghetti code or something, it is going to increase the development time and maintenance time, and possibly you have to rewrite the code, and it actually defeats the purpose of using the LabVIEW and NI tools. LabVIEW is a very, very powerful software, but if you don't know how to use it, it's like that. For example, you just know how to ride a bicycle, but somebody gave you, let's say, a rocket to go to the space. Just because you have a rocket, if you do not know how to use it, the rocket becomes useless to you. So the long-term impact is basically it will be very difficult to find the lab developers because of the developed culture. Now, how the culture is developed, okay, I think this is very interesting. So the first thing is LabVIEW is introduced as easy programming language. It's not even a software programming language. It's actually a simulation. If you introduce people like that, or they are inheriting the spaghetti code as the first place, this is the first time they are using it, or it starts LabVIEW, do it yourself. Okay, you just people say, okay, it's just like drawing. Okay, so finally you are going to produce the spaghetti code, increase the technical depth, and developers as well as the decision makers, even the managers will develop the dish test back, because okay, LabVIEW is just consuming time and energy, and it's not delivering. And this is going to snowball, and then it will spread towards all your community members, and people who develop this a psychology, and more you will go in this a never-ending circle. Now how to break this. Okay, so developing LabVIEW mainstream is, LabVIEW is introduced as the mainstream programming language. You will just educate the customer. For example, when we provide powerful hardware, we also provide what the capability of LabVIEW, and inherited the standardized code. Everybody writes the standardized code, and it starts LabVIEW systematically. Okay, like I mentioned that they don't need to know about the SMOREs or solid principles initially, but if they know just to follow the NI recommended guidelines very simply, I think that can do miracle. I think everybody can do that. Not too much of a big deal. And this is going to produce the standardized code. It is going to increase the technical wealth, and eventually it is going to cycle. People will develop trust in LabVIEW, and that's how it's going to be a win-win situation for NI, the developers, the customers, and consultants, everyone. So this is the empirical data conclusion. So these are the challenges. These are not my conclusion. These are what came from the empirical research based on the data we collected. So programmers are unaware of capability of LabVIEW, niche industry, cost, not much support, and then a performance, social control, and these are the advanced features of the other programming languages also are lacking over there. Possibly they may not know properly, and possibilities what we can do to establish LabVIEW as a mainstream programming language, marketing and awareness, general purpose, make it open source possibly, and standardize. I think this is very, very important. All these things are important, but I think marketing and awareness and these two are very important aspects, if not all of them are possible. So the conclusion based on this, while most participants believe that LabVIEW certainly has edge over the other programming language when it comes to test and measurement industry, they also see that LabVIEW requires some actions to establish itself as mainstream language in the industry. It is found that majority perceive that marketing and developing awareness of full potential of LabVIEW combined with responsible programming using standardized coding practice may help LabVIEW to present itself as mainstream programming language. So it is found that a price of LabVIEW was not actually a deal breaker. Okay, you might say that okay, LabVIEW is expensive or not, but the data shows that only 16% believe that cost of LabVIEW is limiting adoption to LabVIEW, However, this number actually increased to 38% when recommending that making LabVIEW open source might improve LabVIEW adoption as mainstream programming language. And another most important recommendation was technical and generic in nature, possibly like, these are the other features like integrating with other stuff. And finally, like, the out of only 1% actually says that like we don't need to change anything in LabVIEW. I think like that is sort of like stagnant. If we don't change it, like it is not going to evolve and will not get the better version of LabVIEW. So change is necessary, but into the positive direction. And it was also interesting to see that only 10% started using college or university. I think like this is very, very important. I think in India, like there are like a lot of, uh, even like when I was interviewing people, like I say that like people have CLEDs and everything, but like, they don't even know, like in some cases, like they don't even know the difference between like a block diagram and, the front panel. I've encountered that. I've even made like a CLA, like who does not know what the API means. So these are the fear, like it is there, and it becomes a responsibility of us, the fellow, like, advocates of LabVIEW to ensure that, like, uh, we not only penetrate, but like, maintain the, the quality of the people like who uses LabVIEW. And this is very, very important because even though we have a penetration, but like if you get like, the bad, spaghetti code writing programmers, like it is actually a drawback rather than a positive stuff. So 47% actually responses are standalone. This is really good. And 13% actually are rarely used. So like it's a great understanding. So thank you very much for everyone. I think like I finished just 4 minutes before my stipulated time. So a special thank you to everyone who participated in the survey. Without you, like this presentation would not have been possible. I think like I want to hear from you guys, like, what you want to say about like what could have been done to improve this presentation, as well as, the LabVIEW to, establish as a mainstream programming language. I think this discussion has been cropping up in previous events also. So like, yeah, I'll take some questions, like if you can. Yes, Sam, like in embedded, like we're almost in the top 10. Is web for the backend server? Yes, like it actually, John, like it actually covers to everything. Interesting. Wow, 100 years is probably including dreaming. Web debugging dreams. Sitting in front of the computer for 100 hours staring at LabVIEW doesn't exactly mean, yeah, Sam, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, possibly, yeah, cleaning block diagram also. Possibly like, yeah, yeah, even 40 hours is a lot. So yeah, so in I think like most of you who have been working with like machine learning or AI and neural networks and everything, you might have seen that like there will always be like some outlier. So that's great. Yeah, if anybody wants to speak, like they can actually uh, uh, request for the access, and like they can speak if the time allows. It would be great that like we can have like a shorter discussion, like even if it is like a minute or two. Yeah, I can see like a lot of great discussion happening here. Yeah, thank you, Partha. Thank you, Jasper. Thank you very much. Yeah, great. Like I'll be sharing this presentation in like in LinkedIn also, so that like it will be available for like everyone to see. And yesterday, like the discussion we had with other the advocates from the industry also, like we actually like a similar kind of theme actually surfaced. So I think like these kind of discussions are very, very important, and I think like we can take it towards the right direction. Okay, great. I think we are uh, out of time. So yeah, I don't think like there is any questions. Awesome. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in, taking your time out, and like attending this session. So I hope like you guys have enjoyed like yesterday and today also. So yeah, let's continue with the other presentation in the GLA summit. Thank you very much.